Clear danger epoxy resins. The safe secret to poisoning your home, your lungs, and maybe your pet dog. Let's start with a little game. What's the thing that promises to make your countertops look like a river of resin-coated dreams and give your garage floors a finish that screams, "I've arrived"? If you guessed epoxy resin, congratulations, you win. A slow, painful headache from inhaling toxic fumes. Epoxy resin is the secret ingredient to turning your home into a modern art gallery, but it comes with an unfortunate side effect. It's not just clear glue. Oh no, it's a chemical time bomb wrapped in glitter and gloss. And the more you breathe in, the more it works its magic on your body, and not in a good way. In this expose, we're going to pull back the shiny finish and reveal what epoxy resins are really made of. Not magical dust and unicorn tears, but toxic chemicals that could cause everything from brain fog to long-term organ damage, as well as create the kind of environmental havoc only rivaled by a small oil spill. So buckle up, because we're going deep into the world of epoxy, and it's not pretty. First things first, let's clear up a common misconception. Epoxy resin is not a friendly, invisible creature from the safe and fun chemical family. Nope. It's a two-part system, a resin and a hardener. And when you mix them, they get hot. Real hot, like, don't make a movie about this unless it's for a horror film hot. Now, let's get to the really fun part. The resin is typically made from bisphenol A, BPA, a chemical that the world's best scientists once thought was perfectly fine to put in everything from plastic bottles to thermal receipts. Oh, and it's linked to several health issues, including hormonal imbalances and the ability to slowly turn your brain into mush. The hardener, usually made from amines, releases fumes that could make a skunk run for its life. But hey, what's a little skin irritation, nausea, and shortness of breath if your garage floor looks like it could be in a James Bond movie, right? If there's one thing the internet loves, it's a good DIY trend. Transform your kitchen countertops with just epoxy and a dream. Sure, why not? Let's all start thinking we're professional installers after watching a 3-minute YouTube video, because who needs years of safety training, protective gear, or proper ventilation? Epoxy has gone from industrial use, where it belongs, to homes, businesses, and even art studios. And while we're over here thinking we're painting a pretty masterpiece, we're really just putting the chemical equivalent of a ticking time bomb in our living rooms. But don't worry, it's totally safe, as long as you don't mind constant headaches and possible chemical exposure that could last a lifetime. Yes, that beautiful epoxy-coated kitchen countertop you're drooling over, it was made by someone who either didn't read the warning labels, thought they were invincible, or just ignored them completely. Welcome to the world of modern DIY, where safety is optional and health risks are an afterthought. Okay, so you're installing epoxy yourself. Don't worry, it's only going to give you a rash, some light dizziness, and maybe some nerve damage. All totally normal side effects, right? You're totally fine. In reality, the risks of exposure to uncured epoxy are real, and they include skin irritation, nausea, dizziness, and even more serious long-term effects like asthma or neurological damage. Who needs a healthy body when your kitchen counters look like a glossy masterpiece, right? And those vapors you're breathing in, they're not just a little smelly, they're actively working on eroding your lungs and your brain. But hey, at least your art table is Pinterest-worthy. Ever wonder what happens when epoxy catches on fire? Spoiler alert, it's not good for your health. When epoxy burns, it doesn't just turn to smoke and ash. No. It releases a cocktail of deadly fumes, including carbon monoxide, acrolein, and other fancy chemicals you don't want anywhere near your lungs. It's essentially a DIY flamethrower waiting to happen. So let's picture this. You've got a shiny epoxy-coated floor in your house, and there's a small fire, maybe from a burning candle or, I don't know, an electric bill. The next thing you know, the fire is producing toxic smoke that'll make your lungs feel like they're being force-fed hot peppers and broken glass. Not the cozy ambience you were hoping for. Remember how we used to be afraid of plastic bags? Well, epoxy resins are even worse. Once they're cured, epoxy is a plastic that will live forever in your house, in your environment, and eventually in landfills. Once installed, that countertop or flooring, it's basically a permanent fixture, but not in the good way. Epoxy doesn't break down easily, which means that when it's discarded, and let's be real, it will eventually be discarded, it will live on as microplastic, possibly finding its way into the water supply, soil and marine life. Enjoy your resin-coated fish sticks, folks. Let's take a quick trip down memory lane. Remember 3M and their cover-up of the PFAS disaster? Well, it seems we might be heading down the same path with epoxy. It's shiny, it's trendy, and it's marketed as safe, but it comes with a toxic aftermath. Sure, the government's not likely to hold a congressional hearing on your epoxy floor anytime soon, but that doesn't mean this issue isn't quietly building in the background. Installers, crafters, and even homeowners are increasingly exposed to chemicals with known health risks. And just like 3M, we might all end up looking back and asking, why didn't we see this coming? All right, here's your action plan, folks. 1. Government regulation. Let's face it, we need better safety regulations for epoxy. We need clearer labels, more rigorous testing, and mandatory disclosure of health risks for all products marketed to consumers. 2. Installers. If you're a professional epoxy installer, stop pretending the fumes are harmless. Wear that respirator and get the proper training. And if you're one of the DIY crowd, don't skip safety steps. 3. Public awareness. If you're reading this, now you know what epoxy is really made of. Make sure to ask your contractors about proper ventilation and ask for certification on the materials used. Your health is worth it. 4. Environmental action. Stop using products that will harm the planet in the long run. If it's not biodegradable, don't buy it. Simple as that. In conclusion, do your countertops really need to be that shiny? Or is it worth considering that maybe, just maybe, your lungs, your skin and your planet deserve better? Epoxy might be the hottest trend in home improvement right now, but it's also a ticking toxic time bomb. You've been warned. We all know that home improvement isn't complete until you've spent a small fortune on a chemical resin you can't pronounce and didn't know existed. Enter the world of epoxy resin, the magical substance that turns your bland, boring home into a glossy, sparkly and potentially toxic showcase. People have gone from granite to epoxy like it's some kind of countertop upgrade, not realizing they're one careless sneeze away from respiratory failure. But don't worry, it's totally safe, right? Who cares that you're covering your kitchen in a chemical that was once reserved for use in airplane parts and industrial floors? As long as it shines, who cares if it slowly poisons you over time? After all, it's FDA approved for some surfaces, so it must be fine to put your food on it. Well, maybe not, but let's dive deeper into the gleaming world of epoxy resin. Because, obviously, it's the best thing since sliced bread. That might just kill you. Epoxy resin, it sounds so fancy, so harmless, so much like glue, except surprise, it's not. It's a two-part, incredibly toxic chemical concoction that, once mixed, creates a substance with a perfect blend of danger, toxicity, and confusion. It starts as a liquid and ends as a solid, glossy masterpiece. But that journey, it's a little less glamorous than the Pinterest boards would have you believe. The resin part is often made of bisphenol A, BPA, a lovely endocrine disruptor that has been banned in baby bottles but is apparently just fine when you're coating your kitchen counter where you cut your salad. The hardener, well, that's a nice mix of amines, another chemical family that's guaranteed to make you regret using it unless you're fully equipped with an industrial-grade respirator. No big deal, right? When mixed, the two components engage in a chemical reaction that will leave you wondering if the fumes are just a part of the home improvement charm. Trust us, those aren't fresh fumes. They're volatile organic compounds, VOCs, which are so far from fresh that you might as well be inhaling a toxic cloud made just for you. Let's be honest, no one cared about epoxy until someone decided to pour it onto a piece of wood and film it for the gram. Instagrammers, TikTokers and DIY YouTubers turned epoxy resin into a trendy must-have item, all while conveniently forgetting to mention the dangers. Why bother with proper ventilation or gloves when you can get likes for your glossy river tables, right? And that's how the craze started. A simple, viral video showing how easy it is to create stunning designs using epoxy resin. Everyone from hobbyists to professional contractors thought, if I just pour some epoxy on this surface, I'll have a high-end masterpiece. What they didn't realize was that their masterpiece was about to become an inhalation hazard. Sure, the tutorial told you to mix epoxy carefully and warned you to wear gloves, but only for the aesthetic, of course. However, it didn't mention that if you don't have proper ventilation, you'll feel like you've inhaled a toxic cloud that'll haunt you for years to come. Forget about those 10-minute TikTok videos that show smiling crafters working with epoxy in their kitchens. Those fumes are slowly shutting down their nervous system. Let's break this down. Uncured epoxy is basically a slow poison. Sure, it's fantastic for creating art, but if you get it on your skin or breathe in those fumes, you'll soon be wondering if your next YouTube video should be titled, "How Epoxy Gave Me Asthma." If you're an epoxy artist working without a mask, I hate to break it to you, but you're the next contestant in the Epoxy Syndrome sweepstakes. Here's where epoxy really shines, under a fire. And when I say shine, I mean it in the most disastrous sense of the word. You see, epoxy doesn't just burn, it creates a spectacularly toxic cloud of smoke that will make even the most seasoned firefighter wish they were somewhere else. Let's just say if there's a fire in a home with epoxy flooring or countertops, the smoke released could very well be more toxic than the fire itself. Think of it as a beautiful fire show. Except the fireworks are all about chemicals like carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, and phenols. So while your new glossy countertop is wonderful for making your kitchen look modern, just don't make it your kitchen's emergency exit plan. Epoxy resins are proudly marketed as eco-friendly because, wait for it, they can last forever, that's true. But did you know forever also means they're essentially indestructible once they hit a landfill? That's right. Epoxy resins are like the cockroaches of the material world. They don't biodegrade, ever. Sure, your countertop may last a decade, but as soon as you decide to remodel, you'll have a hunk of indestructible plastic just sitting around waiting for future generations to deal with. Eco-friendly, more like eco-nightmare. Remember the 3M scandal? Those forever chemicals, PFAS, that got dumped into water supplies, soil, and even human bloodstreams? Well, we may be in the early stages of the next environmental scandal, and its name is epoxy. But don't worry, no one is paying attention yet, except for the people using epoxy resin in their homes and businesses, inhaling fumes and exposing their families to long-term health risks. Like 3M, the epoxy industry is being sold as safe. But the more we learn about the toxic effects of epoxy, the more we start to wonder, is this going to be the next chemical crisis we'll have to clean up decades from now? It might be, but by then everyone will have glossy countertops and artistic floors to die on. Here's where the real fun begins, though. What are we going to do about all this? Simple. We need to make sure epoxy installers actually know what they're doing. We need to stop pretending it's all sunshine and rainbows when people are working with chemicals that could leave them with respiratory issues or worse. We need more than just flashy Pinterest photos. We need clear, understandable warnings and better regulation. Maybe, just maybe, we should consider other options, like using a natural stone that doesn't need to be handled like it's a science experiment. But until then, make sure you're wearing a mask, or don't, but prepare for the next DIY project to have the tagline, "Don't try this at home," or anywhere really, because the truth is, epoxy resin is not the harmless creative material it's made out to be. It's a beautifully toxic lie that could one day haunt us all. You've seen it on TikTok, that shiny glassy table with river blue streaks, the crystal clear countertops, the durable garage floors, the food-safe finishes on kitchenware. Epoxy resin has quietly infiltrated homes, schools, hospitals, restaurants, often under the warm glow of marketing that screams modern, durable, and safe. But behind that high-gloss finish lies a far more sinister reality. Epoxy, while aesthetically pleasing and marketed as user-friendly, is an industrial-grade chemical compound made up of ingredients that are not only toxic during application, but potentially hazardous long after the shine sets in. While the resin may be food-safe once cured, the journey to that point is a chemical gauntlet. One that many DIYers, small business owners, and even professional installers walk through with little to no understanding of the long-term risks. This exposé isn't just a health warning. It's a call to action, because as the epoxy trend accelerates and its usage expands, we may be watching the early chapters of the next 3M-level environmental and public health disaster. The difference is, this time we still have a chance to act.